Good morning, I'm Rick Chafee with Ask the Masters, and I am sitting here with Luke and Amy Denny with Alpentile. We've worked with them a couple different major projects in my career. I think both of them won some reasonable little awards with them as well. They are kind of infamous in the tile world. I would call them artisans that work with tile, not just tile setters. They focus on larger scale projects that are extremely difficult and have a lot of detail to them with some really fun glass mostly. We're going to do some general interviews today and just talk about their start in our industry, what they've done to help change our industry, and kind of where they're going to keep going in the future with what they do. So good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us.
So walk me through what, first of all, you guys are a married couple. Everybody should know that. So they must like each other a reasonable amount because they spend every day in the bottom of a pool or at their home.
Yes.
So how did you guys fall into or get started in the world of tile installation, especially in, I think, did it start in swimming pools or you ended up in swimming pools?
Ended up in swimming pools. So I was working for a glass tile manufacturer doing product design. Luke was previously a dental technician. And
I see how those come together.
yes, right. So it's the small things, right? And actually the first tile jobs were setting vignettes and working with new products that hadn't been worked with before and trying to learn, setting systems and, creating, kind of an idea of how to put these new products together.
So early we were in manufacturing, like with, I think you were with Oceanside?
Yeah,
right?
I was at Oceanside.
Okay. And you worked with them kind of through, what were you doing with them? Because that gives you a good insight into what it takes to work with glass tile, what it is to make glass tile, right?
Yes. So I was doing product development and design for Oceanside. So, and that, involved, designing new colors, new sizes, shapes, but also the technical side of that. And there's a technical department there, but working with them to, it's one thing to make a beautiful design on paper. It's
right.
another to turn that into a product that an installer then can be successful using. So what was really helpful is when Luke started doing installations for the design department for merchandising and whatnot, we, had really good communication. Sometimes I was able to help.
Were you guys married then, or is that how you met?
We met in Seattle.
In Seattle.
Yes.
We were not married yet.
I don't think we were married yet. We got married when we were working at Oceanside.
Yeah. Cool.
So anyway, through that time frame, Luke got into installation. And so I was over at Oceanside, and then he was working at a company, and then eventually started his own business doing tile installation, focusing on glass mosaics, but interiors.
Okay.
So, that's where it all began. And then we took a year off and traveled in Asia. And when we came, and that was just a thing we wanted to do. Before we got married, I had done a lot of travel, and Luke hadn't traveled a lot, and we wanted to sort of create our own travel.
I'd been to Canada.
You'd been to Canada, yes. So we went and did a year abroad, and when we came back, ended up moving to Arizona. And so the Arizona move was when I think pools sort of became an obvious progression
So
for
let's
us.
talk about that obvious progression. You went from working inside comfortable environments in shade inside of a house,
Yeah.
and then you moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and thought,
Yes.
how can I make this more fun? Let's go stand out in 115-degree weather in the bottom of a pool.
And if we could get
What?
surrounded by a
We're not the
concrete
smartest.
bowl, that would
I
be
was going to say, so
Yes.
we brought you here to look like you guys were experts in what you
Right,
do.
apparently.
We're kind of
doing
undermining
it
the
wrong.
expert ideas here.
I mean, I kind of feel like the pool was just the natural move. It's like interiors, you can get more complex designs, but pools, I think, just take it up to the next level. And I think
The technical difficult side
Yeah,
of taking that same product, but now making it work.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was just kind of the natural progression for tile installers. Is I think eventually you get into these crazy pools like that you're building.
Yeah, I
if
think
you're wanting to continue the difficulty level. So, you do enough interiors and you're kind of looking for what else is there out there. And the float work, how he got into swimming pools was helping Greg Andrews on a project.
Okay.
And so that was when, his eyes were opened to really the scale that these projects can achieve and the complexity, the float work being a huge part of that. And there's artistry and sculptural, it's a sculptural thing, rendering a pool to receive glass mosaics with a cold tile layout. So a lot of planning and brain work goes into that part of the project. Ultimately setting the glass tile is the easiest part once you've mastered the float work.
Right.
And so that's why it's a little bit more complex in our mind compared to interior work. Although, now we're doing some interior work as well, and I feel like interior work is also very complex. So I don't want to say...
There's no economy of scale there, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing a shower, you can only go so far before you get to a stopping point, whereas a pool, you can be like, well, we could work on these stairs for half the day, and then we've got another 1,500 square feet to work on.
Right.
So you can really, setting, I think some of our fastest days we could do 100 square feet, maybe 80 square feet.
Even in
a pool?
In a pool with a team of 3, up to 300 or 400 square feet if we're just doing the flat bottom of a pool. Yeah. But what's interesting in pools is you'll have a day like that where there's all this progress, and then you move over and you work on stairs or in a cove, and you might set 1 square foot of tile in a whole entire day because it's all hand cuts. And so getting that meticulous kind of experience and then a nice big mass economy experience makes swimming pools very dynamic tile work. So that's what has kept us interested and continuing to push forward in swimming pools. Also, the design of pools is consistently just moving further and further. And so it's exciting. Every project is truly different than the
It's
last.
not another shower that's 3 walls. It's completely different. So to back up a little bit, I think one of the challenges we hear from people when they hear about working with people like you, when we're talking of install prices of $60 to $100 to $120 a square foot, sometimes they're like, that's not even possible. You guys are crazy. I think the thing that's really needs to be understood if you get into that realm of type of tile is, like you started to bring up, that you can set field tile pretty quickly, but wait a minute, the prep side of stuff. I know we've worked on projects where we've worked 6, 10, 12 weeks and we haven't set tile yet.
Not even a piece,
Because in order to get things prepped correctly so the glass tile comes out like a piece of art, we can't just start laying on this terrible substrate. We can spend weeks getting it ready, months getting it ready to proper render it, size, shape, length, so we're not cutting as many tiles, so we stop, so the benches and everything come in line with everything. And the pool builder can't, he can try to get close to that, especially with shotcrete, we can get close, but it takes an immense amount of time and layout and thought process to make sure maybe a bench over here is going to line up with the stairs over there, because we're about to start putting horizontal lines on 5/8 inch centers through the whole pool, and all we got to do is miss something by 1/4 of an inch, and when we get over there, like now I got to fix it.
It could be a foot.
Yep.
Well, when you're doing those all tiles, just like you're saying, everything's got to wrap. And I think when we're floating these projects, we're probably about 2/3 floating
for sure
of time to 1/3 of the tile installation. Because the tile, if we do our job right in the field, the tile part is the easy part. It's just reshaping that shell so that we can not have to bring out that saw.
Right. Hopefully we did the math right.
Right.
And I'd say that when we're bidding in terms of a timeline across the board, 60% of the timeline is prep, and that's cleaning and waterproofing, and then the float work, which is a huge chunk, and then just our final phase before setting tile, and then we've got 40% at the end, which is the actual tile work and
putting the jewelry in on top of all that extra work. So,
but that is one of the communication expectations we try to set in our early communication, is about that timeline, because the client, everyone's excited to see the glass tile go in.
Sure.
Like, that is the big exciting moment. And
and
a lot of money is being
spent. The tile
spent,
guys are here, so tomorrow my pool is going to be beautiful.
And then it's just gray shotcrete, and then it becomes gray mud, and then time goes on, and everyone's like, "Where's the tile?"
Oh yeah.
So we actually do, when we can sense that there's a, sense of urgency to get something pretty up on the wall, we'll organize our workflow around that. And if we can put a section in of tile in one area that's going to be protected, you know, kind of what Luke was saying earlier about the economy of scale of having many different areas that we can work on. You know, we can get a spa area going and have that be a couple of weeks ahead of the pool, and you know, try and push to get the glass tile up over here, so at least we can say, look, this is what you're
Feeling of progress,
right, a feeling of progress. It is really important. And
well, so that means you've worked for me, and I've been there, the one in the pool screaming like, we need to get some tile on
yes,
the wall.
they've had to see the
I had a
tile.
client to keep showing up or sees
Yes.
this camera over here, and he's like, are those tile people? Or it
Right.
looks like they're just kind of playing out there.
Are those the Shotcrete guys
Yeah,
again?
Yeah.
Like, how many more times are we going to put shit layers on this pool?
Well, and then we're going around in a circle. Like, we've time-lapsed a lot of our work, and when we go back, we realize why we don't have to join a health club, because you see us, so we're just like around and around thousands and thousands of times over the course of a project as we, you know, work the layers. You know, our projects have, you know, 7 to 8 layers of waterproofing, of mud, of build outs, of whatever
Bond
it is,
coats, all the
bond
different-
coats. Once you, yeah.
Well,
So,
and then we even like to combat some of that where it just looks like it's gray on gray on gray on gray. We just started doing some overlap with our materials just to change color.
just
You know, so
using a white, like we'll use white thin set, for example. It's a little trick. White thin set to bond our mortar bed, just so that people can see when homeowners come or a builder comes
Right.
at the end of the day and they're like, what did they get done today? They can see, you know, a layer of white at the edges between what we did
Right. You
and
can
what was
see
there
the area.
before. So it's a funny little thing, but it truly does help
Yeah.
in terms of showing people, you know, that there
We
is
did
progress.
stuff.
We did
Yeah, we
work
did stuff.
today.
We were here
Or
all day.
The
It's a lot of time.
cementitious waterproofings too.
Yes.
We'll
Right.
do white,
Switch colors.
gray,
Mhm.
then back to white, then gray, then back to the mortar bed.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I think people don't understand is we're taking, you know, running waterline tile is fairly, you know, simple and easy, and for the most part, it doesn't take a lot of effort. But when you start, we are literally taking a product that probably isn't designed to be in this environment, right? We're taking a product that changes and with temperature more than the shell does. We're taking a product that's highly expensive sometimes. We can pay
Yes.
lots of money per square foot. So little bits of failure can cost lots of money. It's a die lot type product too. So if it's 2 years from now when it fails, it's not simple to just, we'll just roll in and fix a few tiles. You're like, you fixed that one and that one and that one.
Right.
And so there's so much requirement to get it right and then deal with this hostile environment we're working in. And we've got water and cool and hot and sun and not sun and things moving around, and then chemical problems. I mean, you got so many different variables where you're going to place this product, this very expensive product, and then expect it to perform. That's what's so important about
Right.
the prep work and the install process. It's not whether you can line up tiles correctly. It's whether you did everything else correctly then to be able to live in this hostile environment
Right.
long term.
Right.
And if you do it right, it can be extremely durable. If you do it wrong, it's going to fall apart in pieces left and right, and then the cost of repair is expensive or impossible.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and there are even, and there are design limitations. So we work all over the United States. We have, different design limitations somewhere where you have significant freeze thaw than somewhere like Arizona where you have significant heat. So we've learned a lot in the years of being in these different environments, working with pool builders who have been in these different environments, and where you put glass tile, how it has as much to do with the design of the pool and the elements as it does with the long-term use. Is this a vacation home and it's going to be winterized for 6 months out of the year? Or is this, a daily use scenario and people will always be here? Who's maintaining the project? Is it, the pool builder who's going to take that on over the long term, or is it going to be handed off? And, how will it be used? Those are things that go into our design process when we're helping a client pick the best materials. And sometimes, we'd love to put glass tile everywhere, but sometimes we really scale back to make sure that the areas where that are going to be exposed to water in transit, for example, that are going to need heavy cleaning because you'll have an evap line, or evaporative mineral buildup. It's easier to get minerals off of a more durable product or a non-iridescent product than it is to get that off of glass over time. So not that it can't be maintained, it's just difficult to maintain. And how much do people want to spend in time and energy and money on the maintenance, and trying to find a good match between material selection, beauty, and this, eye candy that we're looking to make, and performance, and how it ages. And, those are all the things that go into making each one of these projects totally unique, and trying to make the best possible overall swimming pool project, where the tile is only one small component. It might be the visual thing that you walk up and see, but it truly is just a small component of the overall project, and all of the things that go into it.
I think it makes sense as pool builders start doing those kind of projects too, is to get you guys in earlier than later,
For sure.
before they've sold this client on all these cool ideas. And then bring in a tile company, whether you're doing the install or not. They could even use you guys as consultants to come in and kind of help dictate where these things belong. And be like, well, we love this concept and this idea, but I wouldn't maybe use this product around here. Why don't we find something that accompanies what's going on, spend the money on the bling over here, because durability over here, winterization, whatever other things you're dealing with. And I think many people just get, let's just wrap it all in glass and it'll look gorgeous, and that's all great and fine and dandy, but it's black glass, it's in Arizona, it's a spa, we're going to turn the water off to heat the spa, the sun's going to hit it, and what is that going to do to the, can it even, and it might not be able to even perform, no matter what you've done to make it work. At some level, there's some places it won't perform very well. And I think the other understanding is that with some of the glass tile installs or any mosaic installs, sometimes the amount of maintenance is considerably more if you want it to look that way, right? An aging fountain in Rome looks great because it's supposed to look like it's aged. Some people look at this brand new, beautiful pool that we built them and they want it to look like that in 2 years. But they want to pay a guy, $50 a month to come out and throw some chemicals at it and leave, and nobody else is paying attention. Like, I don't understand. This is more than a swimming pool. The maintenance is a whole nother level, depending on what it is. Some maybe not, depending on the situation, but majority of them require a little bit more maintenance on the aesthetic and being much more careful with chemicals and water, because you can really get into a problem with the grout. You got a lot of grout involved. You got iridescent tiles. Iridescent tiles are very difficult to, like waterline iridescence, very hard to clean it off and not damage that iridescent finish.
And you see, because it's iridescent, you see the mineral buildup
much faster,
and it's much more noticeable than just on a regular ceramic tile. So even though you might be having the same exact normal, wear and tear, aging, mineral buildup as with another product, because of the nature, the very aesthetic beauty of the product that's there, people notice it more and think that it's worse.
It's almost magnified on glass versus on porcelain or ceramic. And the thing we see is just a lack of brushing is probably the number one issue.
If you keep up with it, just letting it get away from you, and you can keep up with a little elbow grease. If you let it go away, then it's like we might not be able to get this back. This the way at least was originally,
And we used our own pool in Phoenix as kind of a model to our clients. That it was in there for, at the time when we left, it was about 9 years old. It pretty much looked as good as it did the day we installed it. And then we'd have a client maybe that, the pool maintenance company just didn't brush and it built up, and we come out and show them, this is how you got to get it off, but you got to brush.
The other thing in the world of glass tile and swimming pools that I see is there is tons of inferior product that has infiltrated the market, right? Because glass became cool. So I think you got to be very cautious on, same thing, application methods. There's bigger pieces of glass now coming on sheets that maybe in some environments that's going to work. In a swimming pool environment, that gets to be pretty scary. We get some major thermal changes. We get poorly annealed glass that has major stress issues, and we have it start failing on us. We have completely transparent glass that if you don't do everything perfect setting that material, back buttering, and there's all these techniques. And I think people underestimate how much little details have to come into even picking the right starting materials, to begin with, and whether they'll perform.
Well, and it's time too, so it comes into the bidding process. If someone shows us a non-iridescent, opaque, 1x1 glass mosaic that's that we know that we can install that at a certain pace, with a certain level of attention to detail, and then you add translucence, take it to a a light translucent. Each one of those things adds more time to our process, which then is more labor and it's more expensive. So, and I think what a lot of people think is, okay, there's a price for glass tile in a pool, and that's the price. It's a square foot price. And we have a scale based on Many factors.
Oh, yeah. Well,
About
you're
the
doing
actual
radials
product.
in the floor. You're doing. I mean, there's
Yes,
so many
that
things
as
you can
well,
change.
too.
You start doing really cool details on stairs and steps, and I mean,
Yeah.
there's this is a piece of art, right? And that's what I think. I started off with. You guys are not tile installers anymore. You're artisans, and you happen to use glass tile as majority of your palette to work with. You guys have proven too, and you've designed techniques of how to get it done quicker, but also the best way, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've got plenty of guys who can install tile fast, and generally know what they're supposed to be doing. But to make it come out correctly, we were lucky on a couple projects where we had really good installers on our phase, but maybe the inside the house they were doing, somebody else did a spa for the client, and they're kind of screaming about how much we're going to charge them to do the glass tile until we start doing our work, and then they
see
start
the
their
difference.
work at $20 a square foot, and then we go. So let me
Right.
show you kind of
difference.
what happens here when you have a tile guy that's not fluent in what he's doing and doesn't even understand what he's the aesthetic he's creating, right? This is not installing pavers. This is not just 6x6 waterline tile. The detail level is 100 times more at least.
Right.
It's not just you have to be a little bit more skilled.
Yeah.
And you've got to start as we started way back
Right.
in the beginning of this. You got materials, locations, whether it's iridescent, like all those things start to play a role. It's not like you said, just grabbing a 1x1 tile and it's always the same.
Right.
Even different 1x1 tiles, or like you look at a light streams tile because of how they provide it on plastic instead of paper,
Yeah.
because of the texture, because it's translucent, you can see through it. All these factors change dramatically what it takes to set that tile.
Yeah.
Just because when you got to pull the plastic now, it's way harder to get the grout out because it took longer than with paper. I mean, all these little details that people have never messed with.
Right.
They can't just order that material and think they'll get the results of something they've seen you guys on a front page of a magazine and be like, well,
Right.
if they can do that, we'll just do it. It'll be the same, So I know that you guys are in the process, and we'll probably even be helping on some of that. The idea of getting more training to the trades and to the
Yeah.
people in the field with this process. I mean, you guys have proven that you've kind of taken the technique early on from early installs to finding a way to perfect many of the different ways to install it and processes. But let's talk about some of the class ideas and some of the teaching processes you guys are starting to think to do to put together to get yourselves out of the pool 24/7, right? But
Right.
then to get this knowledge that you've helped perfect over time into the hands of the trades, so that we have more people doing a better job.
Yeah, so we have talked about this for a long time, and the need for there to be more installers, independent contractors in the pool industry, like this bridge between the tile industry and the pool industry that isn't very strong at this point. And so what we want to do is, try and make it so that every region has several trained tile installers, independent contractors who really understand how to do this kind of work, so that every region, the pool builders in that region have a local resource, basically.
Right.
So the fundamental thing is, of course, understanding the standard and understanding, what the industry says needs to be done at the very bare minimum to be successful. And it's easy to find the document. The document has lists of requirements and some good drawings, but to understand what those line items actually mean, to have somebody actually walk through and say, okay, here's the bullet point X, and we're going to do this right now, and have more of a hands-on walkthrough from the standard, but then also moving on from the standard, some of the additive things that we have learned over time, and some of the real working environment and real case scenarios versus an ideal scenario.
You mean that little list on the back of the bag is not going to be what's going to happen to me in the field?
Yes. So, and the, starting with this kind of beginning to end, definitely we want to do some float work classes and teach people how to, make the imperfections of a shotcrete shell, how to, bring those in, create a full tile layout, plan ahead so that once you get to the tile setting, it's a breeze. I say a breeze. I don't know that it's always a breeze. Well, you definitely learn how good you are at math when you get to the tile setting phase. And
most people, I think
sometimes
most people,
it's high fives, and sometimes
you said a simple comment. I don't think most people understand full tile layout. Like,
Yes.
what does that mean? So
Yes.
they don't seem to get when we're dealing with glass tiles.
Yes. Yes.
and we're going to box this thing in, and we're going to make all these steps and benches, and it's all going to have to roll around, and
Right.
you're going to come down a wall and then across the bench and then back down another step that's going to run into the wall again.
Yeah.
Right.
Walk me through what you mean by full tile layout.
Yes. So we plan ahead in our float work, building out based on the dimensions of a tile sheet or an individual tile layout, less tile thickness, so that when we're installing our mosaics, it's a full tile wrap. So we need to have a tile wrap challenge.
Yep.
Basically, in every direction, you're wrapping this present, and every grout joint lines up, and never do you have like a tile falling off joint.
Right.
As you turn a corner, and that takes an immense amount of planning. Stairs, are extremely difficult to get perfect on the first try, and because you have so many planes intersecting with each other, and then oftentimes you'll have a set of stairs on the diagonal with benches that are at a different elevation, and then there's a knife edge, and then there's an angle to the knife edge, so there's an exterior layout that wraps up onto the horizontal pitched knife, and then down, and so on and so forth. So planning that layout from the outside in or from the inside out, depending on the design of the project, that's the
You're fired.
that's the artistry. So we always
yeah.
say the artistry is in the float work, and that's where the creativity, that's where we achieve the perfection, attempt to achieve the perfection, I should say. We're not allowed to say perfect.
Right.
So
Yeah, but we like starting on our vertical walls, and figuring out those widths, and then once we figure that out, then we can start playing with the horizontal. We just kind of break it up, because it's overwhelming when you look at it, when you think about all these different planes have to wrap into one another.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't think people understand what happens when we grid something out like that. I mean, we've early days building houses, we wouldn't worry ourselves when a wall's a couple inches out of square with something, and you think it's not a big deal in the framing stages until you guys show up, and then you put all these horizontal and intersecting lines and be like, oh no, now that wall looks really out of square. How do I fix that? So you learn early on how important those things are if you're in a construction field. But in the swimming pool, let's be honest, the swimming pool world is not very detail oriented and not very perfect in what they need to do. We started with doing a lot of kidney shaped stuff, so shape was sort of relative to what the plan said. Even if we get into more rectangles and squares, most of our contracts will even say if we're within an inch or two, we hit it.
Right.
Once we get into the half-inch sized mosaic tile, we have to be perfect, and we're not going to get there with a shotcrete. But now you guys are required, and then guys like me are going to say, but I don't want square steps or benches in my spa. I also want my benches to kind of have a contour to them, but I still need them to line up when they hit the wall.
Right.
And this one's going to be a little bit shorter than that one, so now we got to get them perfectly shorter or longer, or deeper, and so that process alone to get all those grids to actually finish correctly is what makes the end result perfect, or at least close to perfect. And we see poor attempts at that because they literally render stuff out per se, but then they just start laying up tile, and then their corner of their pool's not true, and so they've got to slice through there. Like it just ruins the entire effect. It would be better just to have plaster in that pool, because now you didn't highlight the fact that the corner's not perfectly plumb. But to get it to that point is really tough, and make it hold up, right? Because we're layering cementitious materials that don't necessarily love each other. We got to get them all commingled and stuck. And so I think people never understood, and even me early on, the incredible amount of detail and knowledge of all your different products and waterproofing and different what the concrete level the structure is already at to start with, and how to keep all that to end up with a highly durable structure that all the tile can sit on properly. And I think you'd spend in the classwork, we've done a little bit of training on tile per se, but most of it was going through the setting process and materials process, and even so I would say the people that show up to our classes are at a higher level of education than the general public in the pool world, because they're coming to classes already. This might be their first class, but most of them are on their 17th class, and they've taken this or that.
Right.
And a good majority of the people that came to even our last tile related class really didn't even understand the requirements and how to mix highly polymer type cements, and why the mixing process and the weight process and the remixing process they didn't even understand the reason for that, or even read the back of the bag that explains to do it that way, but it doesn't explain why either. And so that's why, to me, what I've learned in construction is telling people to do something doesn't work, you need to tell them why they're doing it, so
Right.
that they see the benefit of doing it. You know, in the shotcrete world, we fight with shotcreters all the time of why we want them to do it one way or another, and they know it's, well, I don't want to do it that way. It's way harder. I've done it this way 20 years.
Yeah.
But the way to get them to do it right is to explain to them why doing it that way is causing long-term problems for us in the future.
Right.
And you guys are gone, and now I'm the pool guy, and I got to go back to the homeowner and explain why we have a problem. But if you can get them to understand the why behind it, they start putting that extra effort in because they realize it's a performance-based reason or something else.
Right.
And so that's the critical thing I think classes will get across to tiled setters at all levels, to
Right.
understand that, you know, we can't add this on top of this. You can't partially use elastomeric membranes in a swimming pool. It has to be either full or part. You know, there's all these little details. They're like, well, they said put this under that.
Right.
Well, in this condition that works, but in this scenario it won't.
Exactly.
So I would also like to see guys like you start to be consultants just in that detail, not even coming out to do tile work, but to take a cross-section pool plan and be able to tell, like, here's the layering, here's what type of waterproofing, where to use it, where to start, stop, where the tile can work if you're doing that setup. Now, does that mean they perform right? I don't know, but at least they know. You know, we go to pool failures, we've seen, you know, paperback tile installed paper down, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the worst of all things.
Those are
Right.
paperback tiles.
Paperback tile. But that's the worst potential of that, and that's pretty rare. But all kinds of
Yeah.
little scenarios like that
There are.
happen where, oh, I've heard that this is the best product to use now for this. Well, it was in that situation, so you can't just apply it to all pools. And that's, we even struggle today. Like we will call out to our manufacturers, as we almost every pool at this point, and show them a multi-layer drawing that says, here's our plan. Is this correct? Can I use this product here, then that product there, then this product
Yes.
here? And they'll be like, no. If you're gonna stop this, then we need to switch to this product. Versus if you're gonna do continuous throughout, we can do that. You know, so it moves. That target moves every afternoon. I mean, if I was to tell you exactly what was perfect to use with Miracoat tomorrow on a tile and waterproofing system on a spa, in 3 weeks that might be a different system because we found a flaw or a better product, or that same system works great because it's in Phoenix with a perimeter overflow, but now we're in a freeze climate, different scenario.
Right.
It's just not simple. It's not like we can give them a quick little matrix that says, click these dots and here's what you use.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a one system fits all either. You know, we've done projects on the East Coast and the West Coast, and we have to adjust what materials we use because we just didn't have access to stuff on the West Coast that was on the East Coast. And then working in freeze thaw environments are a big deal, and that changes our system and how our pools look out there versus say someplace like Arizona where we don't have to worry so much about freezing, and
Or the California coast where it's 60 to 80 degrees and that's your swing, right? Versus 0 to 110.
and then that also takes it another step further with controlling your work environment. Tents.
Yes.
Is it just going to be a nice shade screen with some poles and you're good to go, or do we got to build a box and get some air conditioning units in here?
Oh yeah.
Or heaters, and
Yep.
what kind of heaters?
Or heaters.
Yeah, you know, and that's, I think, another thing that we'll cover in the classes is talking about all of that environmental, you know, there are the instructions and the methods, but there's a whole group of a lot of information around how to make those methods work without having, you know, sun exposure or wind exposure is almost worse than sun exposure. No one talks about wind. Not only from the aspect of your tent blowing away or into a $50,000 multi-slide window, but also in terms of skinning over these polymer modified thin sets. So humidity and cure times. There are all
water
of these
temperatures. I mean,
Yes.
just forever.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. If you're working somewhere where it's really cold, how do you keep your water at a consistent temperature every time you're mixing thin set instead of,
And the fact that it's important to do that. Right?
Yeah.
I think many people, you know, if you read
hot hose water.
the requirements of some, like even concrete for that instance, if you go through the ACI and all the, like, there's times in Arizona for months we technically can't do concrete work.
Yeah.
Well, we have to make appropriate accommodations to deal with the product in those environments, and I think that's the tricks of the trade in the industry.
Right.
You know, putting heaters in our buckets of water, putting ice in our mixed water, checking those things, documenting that you're checking those
Yes.
things. You know, if you got a black garden hose that lays out in Phoenix and it's laying outside your tent,
Right.
and you turn that hose on to mix your water, it's going to be 150 degree water.
Thin set's not going to
10
last very
minutes-
long.
They want it
10
to work between 60 and 90 degrees, and
Right.
this is probably not going to be
Yes.
helpful to our situation.
Yes.
And it's
And adding
breezy,
more water
and relative
doesn't solve the
humidity is
problem.
0. You know,
So yeah, there's just a lot of little bits of helpful information that can create so much more success for people. And for us, it's second nature at this point. And it's really easy for it to become second nature. And a lot of these things aren't expensive. It's just things you need to be aware of. And it's just methods that you put into your regular, setup and breakdown. And it helps your guys to be successful. Or if you're the practitioner of the work, then, you're going to be enjoying your work a lot more. So,
and that shows in the work.
And it shows in the work.
When it's 110 out and you're able to create a comfortable work environment, the work's going to look better. You're going to get longer hours in.
Right.
And and then when it's all said and done, I think it truly shows.
Well, I think that providing time. I mean, I've pushed you guys on projects that didn't give you enough time, and when you start adding those little variables, it's hot. You're getting pressed on time. You're tired. Materials aren't correctly operating for you. You can quickly turn into like, we just got to get out of here and get done. And when you change, the end result is dynamically different than I'm in a comfortable environment. The client expectations understand we're going to be here for a long time.
Right.
They got us in early enough, that we didn't bring you in so late because, well, the house is already done. Why did you bring me in now? I could have been here 4 months ago. And, they don't realize those things. If they get all those correct, the end result and the performance of the end result is so much better long term. There's just so many variables that I don't think get thought about on the pool building side, the home building side, the installer side, and even the supplier side, right? There's so many product mixes and details and different manufacturers that have 4 different products to set glass tile with. Well, help me understand when I should use that one versus this one. And I don't think they're very good at that either. I think it takes practitioners that have figured out, like, this works great flat surfaces. When I try to use it on walls, I can't, it never works for me unless I do something special to it or I switch to a different product, because now it will sag less on the wall and I can function better. Though that's not on the bag, right? And then you get halfway through, like, I can't get this to work. You're frustrated, like you've went through that.
Yes.
And I think people misunderstand the importance of classes. Experience in the field is huge. But when you get to sit in a classroom with 20 other tile installers or 30 other tile installers and a couple really high-level experts and maybe some manufacturers, you've now brought 10,000 projects into one room and talked about all the nuances of them. So everybody gets to learn that versus out there learning on your own dime and having all the failures and problems and mistakes.
Right.
It'll take you 100 years to accumulate that much knowledge in one room. And so
or it could even just scare you away from, you might be going down a path and then have a bad experience and a learning lesson that could push you away from ever trying to do it again, which is understandable and really unfortunate. So if we can put classes together that help people, you've done a few projects, now you're going to come in and, step up your game exponentially, create connections with other people who have done the same type of work and can help you learn from their learning lessons.
We're still
I just feel like it makes
as
the whole thing. Yeah, we learn on every project. We review every product that we're planning on using on every project because the ball is always moving. There are always failures or situations happening or new product developments happening or tests happening. And within 3 months, you could see a product that was recommended now not recommended, or the recommendation has changed. And we're just in the one component of tile,
right?
So even at our, micro level, we see that happening and it impacts us directly, consistently. Getting this information to the other tile installers, up the chain to the pool builders, and so that everybody is reading from the same book. And I think it's going to create a lot more success in these projects. And I believe that once you get into glass mosaic swimming pools and these types of finishes, materials, design work, the investment that's being made by the client is so huge that it deserves the time and the energy and the knowledge and this collective approach. And that's something that we can all work together to then communicate to the client so that their expectation is set at the front end.
Right.
And they understand that all of this effort is for their benefit ultimately.
Right.
That's the kind of environment that we want to work in. And the jobs where it has been like that are the fun jobs.
Right.
Those are
You're
the ones where everybody's
and
everybody sees value. It's additive, the care that we're putting into each step. When we see something, we're like, hey, here's a pipe that has a large void or a crack that looks more than just a simple shrinkage crack in a shell. And we stop and bring people in and say, hey, let's talk about this and figure out.
What's the prescriptive repair? What should we do here versus oh, we'll just tile
Yes,
over.
you know,
That won't come through.
Yeah. And
Glass
all
tile
that
is
stuff.
really strong. It holds
Well,
it
it's
together.
already cracked. It can't crack more.
That's
Right. So, you know, those things slow down a project timeline. And so there is, you know, there's this negative impact there on time, and timeline and schedule. And we understand that. But then there's this other positive impact, which is that we're all in it together to create this best possible scenario that no one's going back a year, 6
Right.
months, whenever later and trying to figure out, oh, what's underneath these layers.
Yeah.
And
why didn't it
find
work,
it,
and-
and why didn't it work, and it, you know, and it becomes a mystery down the road. And so, yeah, you know, I think that's really the ultimate goal of the education classes and the hands-on and having different kinds of people in these classes. I'd love to see pool builders, site superintendents, tile installers, obviously, project managers, you know, different manufacturers reps,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
I think they all that's what I get more out of taking the class when I take it. I mean, I've taken majority of the classes that get offered in the pool world or whatever. I'll take tile classes. I took one at estimating class just the other day. I get about 40% out of the instructor and the content. But the rest of us, if we'll open up and talk and chat and spend the days together, we've made connections with other people that are doing something we were planning to do, that they already know what the problems are, or they bring other things into the classroom that we all get to learn from that had nothing to do with why the class was being taught, and it increases my reach now and my ability, because of the connections I've made. It makes me able to do projects that are completely outside of our perfect expertise that we've even done before, because I also know I can call you guys on a tile job. I can call, you know, somebody else on ozone, and somebody, like, because I have all the experts. I'm not the expert. I just can assemble the right team, and they can help me get the expectations of the client correctly, and the end result is a much more seamless project for everybody.
Right.
And we don't have risk. The risk level gets brought down dramatically when we do these really high-end projects. The risk is extremely high already. We don't want to guess the finishes or take the scapegoat. Most of the bad tile projects I've seen are highly expensive, really high-end jobs that corners were cut because they wanted to save some money on the install maybe, or the material, and then they end up with the work, like, well, you cut all those corners, but it's going to cost you 3 times that much to fix it now to do it right, or it's just going to crumble and look terrible. So that's your option. And I don't think without having good expertise to back you up, if I'm selling that to the client, they're going to sort of understand it. If I bring in, let me bring in my tile installers who have done this across the country and know what we're doing. Let me have them also talk to you about why we're going to pay this much more, and why we're going to use this type of setting materials, and why we're going to stick to this glass versus something you found with mesh on it, or something that we know won't perform.
Right.
Let me walk you through that process and not increase that risk. And
Right.
most people increase their risk dramatically and make less money in the process, and don't realize they've done that to themselves to try to make their customer happy. Well, the customer's going to forget that when it starts failing.
Right.
They're going to say, well, I counted on you as my expert. So you're like, well,
Yeah,
I know,
it's
but I
our
wanted
job
to
to be
use
the expert.
I wanted to use these guys. You didn't want to pay for them. Doesn't mean you agreed to it, so you must have thought it was okay. So I think that'll be a missing piece to what's in the education market already. And I'm glad you guys are coming on board with what's been going on between Watershape University, Ask the Masters, the Genesis over the years. Like, keep bringing that to the table and give another outlet and another option for the next level of the pool side, which isn't just the construction and the design on paper. It's, let's take the artistry finishes and get them to perform in the field.
Yeah, and our idea is to start with the basics and, you know, the most important things to have a successful long-term installation, and then to move on into, you know, as people are interested and as, you know, the everything gets figured out, to move into some of the more creative and fun things, the jigs, some of our, you know, unique techniques that result in the kinds of projects and tile work that we do. You know, it's I think it's going to be fun. I think people are going to have a really good time in the classes, and I think we're going to be definitely strengthening the community. And the fundamental idea being that all of us are reading from the same book at every level in the project, and that we're also able to find like-minded contractors interested in performing at their highest level. And I think those are the kind of people that are going to be interested in coming to the class and sending their employees to the class.
If every component of building a pool is kind of all operating at the same level, it just makes it easier for everyone.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You know, and I you know, back to what you guys were talking about earlier with who would, you know, be an ideal person to come to these. Also, the other trades involved in building a pool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh,
the
man.
excavators, the shotcrete guys, the steel guys,
Plumbers,
because it would
straight
be
pipes.
it would
Yes.
be great for us, so that they could see how the decisions they're making on this day impact us
Yes.
3 months down the road.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's not like, you know, it's not easy to get other people back out to look at some issues and stuff. They got other projects going on, so you know, we usually kind of end up having to fix a lot of this stuff on the fly. But if we were all involved together in an educational way, you know, I think we would just, you know, it'd be easier to just get the job done right. You know, knowing how what I'm doing today is how this impacts that guy tomorrow.
Well, I think that's the education piece that is the biggest impact. Making sure, you know, like we talked to shotcrete guys. Well, I've been doing that forever and I never had a problem. Yeah, you have a lot of problems, but it never gets back to you.
Yeah.
Right.
You're gone, you're on pool 75, and now you guys are here and I'm there, and we're trying to figure out how to fix the problems. It's not, sometimes it's not worth dragging them back to the table to get, we don't even need them to fix it. Now we're dealing with it, but if they knew the impact,
Right.
they would care different. Back to my, do it this way is not the right solution.
Right.
Here's why I need you to do it this way, and here's what happens down the road.
Right.
And again, mosaic pile pools, just you just brought up pipes for one thing. Obviously, straight pipes is helpful, but more importantly than straight is level.
Yes.
Because again, we're going to put all these perfectly straight lines
Right.
around this pool, and like, oh, spa jet, oh,
You'll
spa
see
jet,
that.
oh, spa jet. In an
You're just
average
going for
pool,
different
you don't
vertical.
really see it.
Yeah.
But when you start dealing with a pool with grid lines on
Right.
it, like, oh, all that stuff is now showing up. That
Yeah.
nothing is where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And then
Well,
the
and how
steel guy
amazing it
impacts the steel guy impacts him,
them. Yeah.
right? So
Oh, yeah.
if the steel's not straight, the plumber, he can't keep his pipe straight.
Right.
So
Well,
Yes.
and as a pool builder, you don't get caught up on that.
Right.
Normally, you get in the
You're a
swimming pool.
big
Even if you're
picture.
walking the pool, looking at the pool, and doing your inspections, you might even it's hard because the steel's not level, so it seems to throw off what's actually level anyway. But as long as things appear level, we're happy to move forward. It's under pressure, everybody's good. We don't usually come back and say, well, we probably need to put a laser and put a test. We need to this one has to go up an inch. That's a big difference because it's only 12 inches from the other one.
Yeah.
Right.
We're going to see that this one's not in line. But most people don't get that is that critical, and that's back to the education piece from early. The guys building, designing the pool, laying out the pool to the end result. They need to know what they should be looking for
Right.
before they get to the tile guys showing up and saying, "Oh, I didn't know that was a big deal."
Yeah.
Right.
So it is a big deal. We can fix it by breaking through this pool and moving the pipe around and putting
Right.
it back together, which is maybe not a good idea because we're taking part of the integrity away from the structure.
yeah.
But we need it to line up.
Yeah.
So
I think it's and just understanding how amazing it can be, like that it's possible to achieve that level of perfection where all the pipes are lined up,
Right.
and how that will, you kick that can all the way down to us, and if it's all straight, if everything is level, it is spectacular how beautiful those little details end up being. And if you haven't really thought about it before and it hasn't been a big deal, but first time that you see that everything lines up, it's like, oh my gosh, we can totally do this.
oh yeah.
And that's how we're going to do it from now on. And it's a cool thing to be able to show the client how much thought went into the design and the execution of the project. And people get excited about that stuff. We do.
Yep.
I am right now.
Yep.
See?
We're not even in a pool.
I'm not even
Yeah.
in a pool.
But we do have OCD, so that,
I do have OCD, so.
You got to have a little bit of crazy to do
Oh
this
yeah,
for sure.
oh yeah, for sure. Especially in the heat of the day, or just sitting trying to make
Oh, man.
a
Yes.
radial layout inside of a floor. So,
Yep.
well, I'm looking forward to working together with you guys on that, or be sitting in your classes, or whatever it takes on that part. I'm
Great.
sure that you are. We can put together something good for our audiences in the future. The class will be highly attended, I would think, and easily to justify expenses to come get here and do it, because the end result, I mean, we start talking about all tile pools, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of install time and material and labor, and getting it right is a very important thing.
Well, and I think that even the person that isn't planning on doing, all tile, like these crazy pools, you might have one or two of those projects, and then you have 50 to 100 that have a more traditional water line with a spillway from a spa. But coming to this class will make those projects exponentially so much better and easier and more successful as well. So it's like we're going to get to talk about the really cool these big projects and ways to accomplish these big projects. All that information applies to every project basically. But I see that somebody coming to this, even if they're not intending to totally go in this extreme high-end direction, it's extremely valuable information, and it'll make their lives easier. on more standard projects as well.
Yeah, I mean, long term, the durability and the performance of any tile project, whether it's porcelain or
Yep.
large format, small format, or mosaics, it comes down to the methods of setting and why you're doing it, and setting with the right products in the right environments.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult field. I mean, a 2-day class in the beginning would cover nothing but those kind of things, and we wouldn't even get into techniques, or it's like just getting through the nuances of what different systems and products are available and what different environments are packed. So you could have days and days and days of basic stuff to get to a point of talking about, and this is now what we're going to do. Right.
Yeah.
Now we're going to start talking about the tile part of stuff,
Yeah.
and now we're there.
Kind of 60% is the mud work.
And the students are going to be just like the client. You're like, so where's the glass tile part?
Yeah.
Where is the tile?
Where is the
part
tile?
two.
Yeah.
Part 2. So I will publicly apologize for my pushing of on the projects we've worked together with
Okay.
today, and publicly apologize for the future projects we're going to do when I'm there pushing. But
Right.
but better understanding the nuances over time, and keeping your customers. I think as a company we've learned too, even because of some of our projects with you guys, making sure the expectations of the clients are better set. That's critical to good performance, and I think the proper education of the systems involved and the timing involved allows the pool builder, whether it's an all-tile spa or just a waterline tile or an all-tile pool, to better educate his clients and make them understand, because that, like we said, the success of the project is dictated by initial, and the understanding of the client's initial expectations. If we get those right, then it won't matter how long it took to get it done, especially if we told them it was going to take 3 months and it took 2.5. Like, we're heroes.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're thinking it's going to take 2 weeks and it takes 4 months, there's never going to be a happy person
Yes,
at the end, and they won't get to enjoy the beauty of what we put in the pool, because by the time they got there, they're pissed.
Yeah.
Right? They're like,
It's
it's
just
about time you started putting tile in, and now I don't even care. Like, can we just put water in my pool?
Right.
Versus they're ready. They're built up to getting what they wanted, and then it starts to come to life.
Right.
So, well, I look forward to us doing a few more podcasts probably in the future.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be doing some work together with classes with you guys. What do you got? What's your next adventure? What's your next project you're going to be working on, or the next thing that you guys are doing personally in life? What's your...
Well, so we are, our next project will be back in Park City. So we're doing a lot of interior work up there. We're working on a big project.
Interior spa.
Yes, so we'll be finishing that up, and
So we'll be slumming it in Deer Valley for a few weeks,
Yeah.
I guess.
so yes,
During
and
the
then-
summer in Arizona, you'll be in Utah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Sounds like a bad day.
Yes, so that's like what's on our on the docket. But other than that, we're up in we're based out of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho now, and we just have a little cabin there that's our little paradise away from the hot pit of a pool when
Yeah.
we're not in it.
Yeah.
We hide in the shade of the trees basically. So that's our getaway / home base. So we'll be
Well, awesome.
out
Yeah.
and about.
Well, thanks for coming in today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks
Another
for
Ask
having
Masters
us.
podcast.
Yeah.
See y'all later.